What's up everyone, Maka here with another topic video. 343 Studios has announced that future Halo titles will have split screen. And this is mostly coming down to the fact that Halo 5 didn't have split screen multiplayer and people were fairly upset about it. Now I didn't actually know that this was the case until actually recently because I don't have an Xbox One, so I never got to play it, but that is definitely a game I would look at. Halo is probably one of the series that I'd be like, you know what, I want to play some split screen multiplayer. What game would I pick? Probably Halo. Halo was a great one if you're with your buddies and you want to play some split screen. That is definitely a game you want to look at. And it's kind of unfortunate that it's sort of a trend nowadays to not have split screen multiplayer. However, the community reaction has actually been enough to make 343 look at it and be like, all right, well, it harmed our community and it harmed our trust in our fire fans and all of that sort of PR jargon. And basically they said, hey, you know what, future titles are going to have split screen, which that's actually really good and kind of exciting because I look forward to a future with Halo on PC, and so having it on split screen on PC would be absolutely fantastic. Now, I know that there were some sort of drawbacks to having split screen multiplayer in other titles, and the reason why Halo 5 didn't have split screen was kind of shrouded as, one, they kind of used the PR terms of, oh, nobody plays it anyway, so who cares? However, the real fact of the matter is that adding multiplayer or split screen multiplayer isn't exactly easy. You have situations to where you can't actually have a lot of different data. I don't know how to finish this level. I think I do though. I think I see it now. There we go. I got it. I got this. All right, sweet. Sorry, got into the game for a second. But they had problems like on the technical side, and they're like, hey, you know, we can't do this on the technical side, and nobody plays it anyway, so why would anybody care? And that's kind of, you know, that was PR, and that was more of a fact of, I would say, laziness, and comes down to the Xbox One itself. They wanted it to be, you know, it's a first-party game, and so they wanted it to make the game look as pretty as possible on the Xbox One, and you can't do that when you're working with split-screen multiplayer, because split-screen multiplayer has a situation where it's like, all right, well, now we're literally rendering two sections of the game at once, and that's not exactly easy on a console. We've seen older console games have kind of trade-offs in the past as well when it comes to split screen multiplayer. There's a lot of games that you'll notice where they have FPS lock, which we actually saw that in a Halo title as well, where I think it was the Master Chief Collection, split screen multiplayer had it divided their frame rate down to 30 instead of 60. So when you're playing single player it was 60 FPS, but when you're in multiplayer it was 30, which is unfortunate. However, I would much rather have it, you know, locked down to 30 rather than just not having it at all. I think that having it at all is a really important feature. And so it's really great that they're actually announcing this. Now, this could just be PR stuff and like, oh yeah, we're not going to make that mistake again. And then, you know, comes the next Halo game and it doesn't have split screen, yada yada. That's the sort of thing that can technically happen. And you know what? I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it did happen, because the technical side of it can be a nightmare. And it also comes down to AI. Now, this doesn't really apply to Halo since Halo already has multiplayer online. And so, but there is also the fact that when you're doing split screen, you also have to account for like different styles of AI as well. So you'll have, you know, one AI it's like, hey, when you're playing single player, it's like, ah, yeah, just shoot at the player, whatever, you got a cannon at a distance or something. However, when you go into the future of that, you're like, all right, well, I want split screen multiplayer, so now you have to actually divide that power up and be like, all right, well, it's going to shoot at whoever's closest or whoever's, you know, this target or whatever, or whoever's seeable. That sort of thing ends up going into play. And so it's much more complicated to add in split screen multiplayer than a lot of people have been sort of saying. And so it's not one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, just add it in. It has to have a lot more thought. Now, it's important that Halo has this feature because Halo was advertised as such a co-op game, and it boggles my mind that they released Halo 5 without split-screen multiplayer, because their entire kind of campaign is advertised around being co-op. It's not technically a very enjoyable single-player experience. It's about being with friends and going through as Spartans and destroying things, even though they sort of centralize their story around Master Chief. He's not the only Spartan, basically, and when you're playing in multiplayer. So it's a good thing to see them sort of changing this. So I'm excited to see what that means. I hope. One worry that I have is that they'll end up having to lock it down to 2 players, because I have a feeling, because of this technical stuff, you know, they're having problems with just 2-player split screen. I have a feeling in the future we're probably not going to see 4-player split screen in Halo games. That's just not going to happen with these current technical status of the games. Unless they make it PC only, then perfectly, yeah, we probably could, because PC is infinite. You can literally have any amount of power that you want to put into it, so that is possible. One thing that I'm worried about is that we are going to get it locked down because of console, and console is going to be like, oh yeah, well, we can't do 4-player co-op, so whatever, we're not going to port it to PC with 4-player co-op, because that would be unfair. And, you know, I would hate that. I think it would be great to have, you know, split screen multiplayer, and having 4-player co-op is also really nice. Now, the chances of people actually, you know, using it is pretty slim, but back in the days of GoldenEye, everyone likes to go back to the days of GoldenEye, that was really, really fun to have, you know, a group of friends. So it'd be nice to have a game like that because games just don't have that anymore. And there is also the opposite argument happening in the indie scene. I'll have to do a video about it at some point, but, you know, to where a lot of indie games that were great single player, or not single player, but like local multiplayer experiences don't have online multiplayer, and it actually like kills the games. And so yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. So hopefully we see that sort of fixed on both sides. I think somebody needs to come out with a framework that makes online multiplayer easier, and I screwed up, whoops. They need to make, you know, online multiplayer easier for, you know, indie devs to make, and maybe make it less expensive, because that is a huge thing. The game in the background, N++, doesn't have online multiplayer, but it's great for local multiplayer. And then hopefully AAA devs see like, oh yeah, you know what, we can do local multiplayer. It's not that difficult. So, you know, maybe they tone down their graphics and stuff like that and actually, you know, give people what they want. Now, some people don't even care, but regardless, whatever. If you don't care, that's fine. I still think it should be a feature nonetheless. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. You can also check out my Impressions review series where I play Icy. It is a 2D action game. That is my most recent one, and it is actually quite fantastic, and it has a meta story, which is very strange and bizarre, and I don't necessarily know how to describe it, but it ends up being really, really interesting, and it's a game I ended up recommending, so go ahead and check that out. You can also check out some other types of reviews that I have. I also do a bunch of these topic videos. The gameplay in the background has been N++, which is the like third or fourth game in the series. I remember N+, which was really, really fun, and I played a lot of online multiplayer when it came to that one. That was really, really fun, but N++ is better in a lot of ways. It's got some cutbacks, which is a little bit unfortunate, but for the most part, it ends up being actually quite fantastic, so I've been enjoying it. I'll get a review of it, done of it eventually, but it does have a lot of problems that's been popping up. Like, it had saves reset all randomly, which was very, very unfortunate. It's had situations to where I couldn't even play single player because it would try to connect to the online leaderboards whenever it was playable. And so it'd be like, all right, I'm going to finish this level. And then it would be like trying to upload scores. And then the server just wouldn't work. And I tried going offline and it did the same thing. And I'm like, all right, well, it's not finding the servers because they literally don't exist. So that was a bit frustrating, but they've been updating the game, so it's been fun. Yeah, sorry, I just ranted about the game for a little bit, but that's fine. Anyways, wow, I died. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Give me your thoughts. Do you guys even play Splitscreen multiplayer? I know I do every once in a while, especially with my sisters and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't play Halo with them. I think that's one of those cases to where I'd probably play with a friend that would come over like once every 4 months or something like that. And so it's not that big of a deal for me specifically. However, I've always looked at Halo as a multiplayer game. And so I've always been just kind of assuming like, oh yeah, that would have it. When I found out it didn't, I was like, oh wow, really? Like that's actually kind of incredible that they ended up making that sacrifice, because that's not a sacrifice I thought they'd be willing to make. But hey, modern creativity has been botched by the technical side effects of consoles, I guess. But regardless, there's a lot of fun multiplayer games I like to play, such as N++ in the background. This is a game that is really, really fun in the local multiplayer space, because it's just one of those games you could race each other, you could screw each other up, and they have an entire co-op campaign. And I love that. I want to see more of that, and I'm glad that a lot of indies are kind of doing that, because sure as hell AAA devs aren't, you know, whatever. Not every game needs to have co-op either. There's games like Far Cry that's definitely a single-player experience. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, God damn it, I did it again.